So, do you think that the achievement gap exists, and why or why not?
Achievement app?
Gap.
Gap. I think, I don't want to say it's really like an achievement gap. I think it's a challenge with kids nowadays, to me, more often than not seem to be a little bit more lazy than they were, say, 20, 30 years ago. I think kids are more privileged-minded, where why do I need to do things when I deserve to get whatever is good without doing any work?
In your experience in the classroom, have you ever noticed differences in test scores between like boys and girls or minorities or different kinds of groups?
Well, without being stereotypical, the day students, I find that more of the females are harder working, more focused than a lot of the boys are. And in the international, I think the Asians are the ones that come here with a better mindset for achieving well. So, minority-wise, the Asians do very well. And then gender-wise, I think the females tend to do a little bit better than the boys do, because they work a little bit harder. And that's
Why do you think that is?
a good question. I think that I would attribute a lot of that to girls understanding more now their opportunities to achieve are greater, but they still have to overcome the challenge of inequality in the workforce. And so as a result, they have to work harder to meet the standards or achieve and exceed the standards in order to get the same type of jobs that their male counterparts would without doing as much.
So, do you think that individual students are responsible for their standardized test scores, or do you think that's a result of their schooling?
50-50. A little bit of both. Because the schools, when it comes to the standardized testing, we don't necessarily, at least in my experience with the two schools I love, we don't teach to the test per se, but we do teach in all those areas, and students wanted to do well. So the part from the student side is kids who want to achieve, want to get into college, worked hard and all.
My first question is, do you think that students are responsible for their standardized test scores, or do you think the education system is?
I think it's a little bit of both. With standardized tests, I don't really think that's the most effective way to, analyze students' progress in a class. For some classes, that might be the most appropriate measure to use, but I definitely think our school system needs to change the way that we're grading students.
Okay, and then my next question is, do you think test scores vary between certain groups of people? Why or why not?
I think test scores definitely vary between groups of people with a bunch of different factors going into that. With the achievement gap, a lot of Black students and minority students aren't getting the same support, aren't getting the same education. A lot of times our neighborhoods are segregated, and so there will be white neighborhoods and Black neighborhoods, and then they're feeding into different schools, and then if the school is underfunded, then the students are going to be undereducated.
Yeah, and so do you think like redrawing the district lines, desegregating the schools, do you think that would help in the...
I think that desegregating schools helps every student. I think it pushes teachers to be better educators, and I think it shows a lot of positive results for everyone. So I think that probably would make the most sense to redraw and try to, I don't know, find different accommodations to close the gap.
Go to a public or private school, and do you think that the education received at a private school allows students to score better on the ACT and SAT?
I went to a public school, and no, I don't think private versus public education increases ACT scores.
Okay, do you think that students are responsible for their standardized test scores then, or do you think it's more the education system they belong to?
I think it's a combination of both, because for one, a school might offer a class and the student might not care, so it doesn't matter. Or two, the student cares a lot, but the school isn't able to offer the program.
Do you think test scores vary between different racial groups?
Yes.
Why?
I think that unfortunately some people come from different backgrounds, and sometimes those backgrounds aren't always good.
Okay, do you think test scores vary between the different genders?
No.
No? Okay. Do you think test scores can possibly affect what students do after high school or affect their opportunities, whether it's colleges or jobs?
So I think that test scores affect their educational opportunities, but as far as a career goes, I don't think tests represent what a person is capable of.
Nice.
Do you think that students are responsible for their standardized test scores or their education system?
So my answer to that would be kind of a little bit of both. I think it depends on the student's background, not only their educational background, but also their life outside of school. It is the education system's responsibility, obviously, to educate the students, but then it's also the student's responsibility. It's their choice as to what to do with the knowledge that's given to them.
Do you think test scores vary between certain groups of people? Why or why not?
So I definitely think that test scores vary between certain groups of people. For one, just by looking at gender, and I know that working with high school students, you can see a difference in maturity level between boys and girls, and just looking at students' backgrounds in terms of socioeconomic statuses and just the education level of parents. There's just a lot that goes into how students do, although that's not always a contributing factor as to how they do on tests, because you have students that come from homes where the parents are not educated at all, but the students have worked really hard and they do well on the standardized test or any test for that matter. But I really think that that they do vary, but I think there's also a way to lessen the variation. I don't know, I think just culture, speaking from my own personal background, coming from an Asian background and just how much education is valued, just the way that we were raised is very much like there was no question about are we going to college or not. It was always expected of us. And I think it's just a mentality of our parents and also just the culture, even though our parents, or our grandparents, none of them went to college, but I think the way that they raised our parents was just like education is your way out.
Just talking about your time in K through 12, do you feel like attending a private school and then switching to a public school, do you feel like that affected your education at all?
I think more on the academic side, I think having gone to a private school was a big advantage, because I feel like the curriculum was more challenging, and there were things that I would not have learned had I not gone to a private school.
This graph shows 2015 SAT math scores. Black students make up the highest percentage in the lower score ranges, whites are evenly spread throughout, and Asians make up the highest percentage in the highest score ranges. Looking at this graph, one might draw stereotypes without seeing underlying factors, such as the lack of equitable education and school resources. As stated in the You're Asian, How Could You Fail Math? Rethinking Multicultural Education class reading, the model minority myth attributes academic success to individual merit while underestimating important structural and institutional resources that all children need in order to achieve academically. It is important to take the statistical data and use it to our advantage to help all schools provide every student with a chance at academic success so that we can break down these stereotypes.